Hello, welcome to our King Air B200 orientation. My name is Isaac Sumner. I'm one of Calstar's fixed-wing EMS pilots. Today we're going to be covering both of our King Air B200s. This particular aircraft is 370 Charlie Sierra. It's a 1996 King Air B200 that we've taken and heavily modified for patient transport. We're going to go ahead and start with approaching the aircraft. We're going to be running through a typical passenger briefing, any information you might need to know as a medical team member on one of our flights. We're also going to demonstrate loading and unloading a typical patient sled, and we'll answer any questions that might come up or typical questions towards the end of this. So as we approach the aircraft, we're always approaching from this quadrant right in here. So you'll see our left wing comes out. This is a nice wall right in here. In front of this we have two propellers up there, one on either side naturally. Those are probably the most dangerous part of this aircraft. So anytime the engines are going, the propellers are moving, do not approach the aircraft. Wait until the engines are shut down. We never do any sort of hot loading here. So the engines are both fully shut down anytime we actually load or unload patients or passengers. We've also got the tail. This is a nice dividing point. You'll see it's a T-tail. So our horizontal stabilizer is going to be very high up out of the way. You don't have to worry about running into that. But this is another dividing point. There's really nothing on the other side of this aircraft that we need access to other than the pilot retrieving things out of the wing locker. So as you're approaching the aircraft, approach from this quadrant. All of our patient loading and unloading will be happening right in here. So you'll see this black wing locker. This is one of the modifications we've done, was to add these wing lockers for increased storage. Anytime you're approaching this aircraft and you ever see something like that, this is an unlocked latch. So if you see something like that, communicate with your pilot or your safety officer and just, hey, is that supposed to be like that? Is that supposed to be unlatched? You can see once we unlatch both, we can actually open this up. Strut keeps it up. These are some of our powered loading components here for a powered loading system. Some miscellaneous oil and chocks and other things that we keep in there for the aircraft. So we'll go ahead and close that and secure it. As we come over to the door, typically your pilot or your safety officer are going to be opening and closing this door, but in case you ever had to, it's a two-handed operation. There's a red button right in here. You can see step one, push button and hold. It's nice they've got that spelled out there. With your second hand, take the handle. You're going to rotate it all the way down to the open position and pull on the door. Release the button, release the handle. Now you can see the door is going to deploy on down on its own strut. And these two door cables are going to go ahead and suspend the door in there. We do have one limitation with this door. It's a very important limitation. That is one person at a time. Never do we want to see two people climbing up or down on this door. It is possible to fatigue it or damage it. Then we'd be stuck wherever we are. So we don't want that to happen. You will see these two door cables. They act as handrails as you're climbing and descending. What we do to expedite loading and unloading of patients is we'll typically remove this forward door cable here and stow it. Gives us a much wider area to load and unload. The door right now is in an unsafe condition to actually climb up or down. So if you're ever approaching this door from the inside or the outside and you only see one cable, do not step on the door. Talk to your pilot or your safety officer first. It doesn't take much at all for us to go ahead and just attach the second strap and make it safe and strong again to load and unload. Do that and drop that down. So let's demonstrate using our manual loading ramp. This is our most common way that we'll load or unload equipment, isolates, and patients. You can see we've taken down the forward door cable here. So this now gives us a wider area, but it makes this door unsafe to climb up or down on. So whoever's inside the aircraft needs to stay inside the aircraft. Whoever's outside needs to stay outside. Your pilot will assemble this manual loading ramp, which we store in the wing locker. So I'm going to set it in place here on the light port. Make sure that it's hooked on the lip. And then he's going to test it by applying some weight to it and make sure that it stays on there. So right now this sled is set. It's centered there on the door. JD and I are going to go ahead and lift up this light port sled, which is empty, thankfully. So it weighs about 50 pounds. We're going to slide it. So typically we lift this off a gurney. We're going to slide it into place until it latches. And you can see that forward is in the life lock right now. So right now it is set. It's not going anywhere. We're going to come back out to this end, and we've got two aluminum bars that are stored in the manual loading ramp. We're going to bring these out. If you look at these bars, half of them are yellow and the other half is just plain aluminum. That's just an indicator. We never really want to pull this out further than halfway. So pull it out until there's no yellow showing. And then at this point we'll go ahead and lift. 1, 2, 3 up. Pilot's going to deploy the step underneath, which is now going to allow this loading ramp to be on a stable position. So at this point, whoever is inside the aircraft, our pilot or safety officer, is going to help maneuver this out of the locks and start bringing it around the corner. If we have a tall patient, we really have to worry about their feet at this point. It is a very tight fit. I'm just going to come fully around onto the life port base. Your pilot will be able to stow the loading ramp. Are you recording?
Yep.
Okay, so we've got this LifePort air sled. It's now on the LifePort Plus, or the patient loading utility system. Right now it's actually in a false lock. So the forward foot is locked in there. You can actually see the aft foot is not secured. This is an unsafe way of transporting anything right now. This LifePort base in 370 Charlie Sierra has 3 different life lock positions. It has a fully forward, a fully aft, and it also has a mid position here. So if we actually pull the handle, we're going to slide forward. This is now our middle position. This is a safe life lock position to transport someone in. You can see both the forward and the aft feet are locked in there. This sled is not going anywhere. We can go ahead and pull the release again. We can slide it fully forward. This is typically where we transport most of the time. This is now in a fully forward life lock position. We also can demonstrate the aft position as well by releasing, and we're going to slide it all the way aft. And now this is all the way aft. With this Tandem Plus unit, it is possible to have 2 sleds or 2 isolettes in here, one in the forward position, one in the fully aft position. It does take a little bit of work to load the second one in here, but we can carry 2 patients if need be. So we have this LifePort sled in the fully forward position. This is typically where we transport most patients or isolettes. We're going to walk through the medical equipment that's located in the 2 Plus units, these 2 base units, as well as this overhead unit called a Serviplex. So we'll go ahead and start with each individual unit. This forward unit here jumps over the spar. So you can see this is the spar carry through here. Great tripping hazard. Use caution when you're walking over this. It's got a nice lip here to try and trip you up as much as possible. But that does shorten our usable space in this LifePort unit. So in this forward unit, it's tied into this aft unit. Everything's wired in series with a few distinctions. So we're going to go ahead and walk through the equipment that we have here. We'll start with medical oxygen. So we have 2 M-size tanks, medical oxygen tanks. Actually located, there's one here in this forward section. There's one located in the back section. The forward tank is always on. The aft tank is a reserve tank. So if we deplete this forward tank, which you might be able to see right down in here, well actually you have to go through the back. But if we deplete this forward tank, we can turn on the aft tank and double our oxygen supply with that. These Ohio ports labeled oxygen are always on. There's one here on the aft unit. There's one here in the forward unit. And if we look overhead to the Serviplex, we've got a couple of more. Forward and aft, we have a regulated oxygen, and here's our regulator. So right now it's fully open at 25. You can decrease that as necessary all the way down to, what, 1/4 before you're off. So that should normally be open. We've also got a free flow oxygen just in case you need to actually connect anything to that. But these oxygen units are always on. We do not need ship's power to go ahead and get oxygen through those. As we continue down here, so that's our oxygen port. Our next is our air, our compressed air. We have 2 air pumps on this. One is in the aft unit, one's in the forward. The switch on each base controls the air pump in that unit. So we can turn on our air pump here and access it through this Ohio port or this Ohio port up here. It's also connected to the forward, so we can access it up here and also down in here. So these are redundant. If one air pump is insufficient air supply for you, we've wired these in series, so we can go ahead and turn on the second air pump here. And that's now going to double our air pump output, and you can access it through any of those Ohio ports. Go ahead and turn off one and then both. So that's our air. Our next is suction. So here's our suction switch right in here. White box around it, white Ohio port. We can turn that on. We'll hear this suction port. You can access it here, and again, you can also access it up here. There's a suction regulator here as well that controls this. Same thing with the forward section, and then you can also access it down here. We've also wired this to go through the wall here. I don't know if you might be able to step up over here. You'll see the oxygen comes out right here, goes through its canister, and then you can actually pull this out, and I believe it's attached to a yank tower. There's also one at the aft end, or the foot end of the aft unit there as well. Our last 2 switches that we have on here are right above these circuit breakers, which should normally be in. The circuit breaker's never popped out. It's going to have a white collar around it like that. that's an unsafe condition, talk to your pilot or your safety officer. So these circuit breakers should be in. We have our inverter switch labeled I and V. To turn our inverter on, it's going to come on right in there, and you'll see a green light illuminate. That's going to add power to these 3 plugs, 115 volt AC. And if you look above in the servoplex, you'll see this green light is illuminated, so these 2 plugs. So each inverter switch adds power 1000 watts to 5 plugs. Now this is the one difference with this aircraft versus the oxygen or the air. You can see the forward one is not on because we have 2 inverters in here. The forward inverter controls the forward section of both the servoplex and the lifeport base. The aft inverter, which we just turned on, controls the aft section and the aft servoplex as well. So we would have to reach down here and turn on this inverter switch to get electrical out of this section right in here. One important note about the inverters, this aircraft right now, we're just operating off ship's power, off our battery. As we start both engines, they take precedence for any sort of a load from the battery. So we ask that you remain on your batteries until we have started both engines, at which point, once we give the command both engines are started, you can turn on the inverter back here, you can turn on the air pump and the suction pump as needed. But just wait until both engines are going. If your batteries are depleted, you're in a critical situation, talk to your pilot and your safety officer. We can always start the right engine and then give you power for a while, but eventually we're going to have to load shed your equipment while we start the remaining engine and then go ahead and bring you back online. So one other caveat on that is a typical problem that we have is with an isolette, they'll plug into, say, the forward plugs, and then they'll turn the aft inverter on, or vice versa. They'll plug into the aft section back there and they'll turn the forward inverter on. So just always make sure to check this green light. Wherever you're plugging in, there should be a green light that's illuminated. If this is not illuminated, that inverter is not powered on. The last switch that we have here is labeled panel lights. This illuminates a luminescence strip right underneath here, so at night this is all bathed in kind of a greenish blue white light through there, and we also have one back here on the aft section as well. Okay, right now I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the seat belt on this aircraft. So in 370 Charlie Sierra, we have one seat that has the old executive style 3-point harness. The other seats in this aircraft have 4-point harnesses, so we'll go ahead and demonstrate both of them. The lap belt portion on this particular seat fastens just like any common seat belt. You can tighten it through there and then decrease that slack right across there. The lap belt portion must be secure for the entire flight unless you're getting out of your seat. So anytime you're seated here, have your lap belt on. For taxi, takeoff, and landing, we not only need the lap belt portion, but we also need the shoulder harness. So on this particular seat, it comes over your right shoulder, right in here. This hook right here is going to attach to the little post right in there. It's got an inertial reel on it that'll stop it from pulling out too quickly. And now the seatbelt is secure, so we can go ahead and taxi, take off, or land. If I need to get out of my seat, I need to verbalize that with the flight crew. So my safety officer or my pilot needs to know, hey, I need to get out of seatbelts for a little bit. And they're going to confirm either it's okay, like we're in cruise flight, yep, that you can go ahead and come out of your seat, or it's not. Hey, we're just about to touch down, or we're just about to hit some really good bumps of turbulence. So go ahead and stay in your seatbelt. While we're here, we'll go ahead and demonstrate our table. So 370 Charlie Sierra has a little table here, which works great for working on things in flight. So this table needs to be stowed for taxi, takeoff, and landing. Once we're airborne in cruise, you can lift this lid right in here, pull the table up, and fold it down, and then this folds out like that. It gives you a nice little workstation right in here that the forward seat or the middle seat can go ahead and use. Again, it just has to stow before we can land or before we can taxi and take off. So that is stowed out of the way and closed. So to release the seat belt, if I need to take off the shoulder harness to get to anything, you just lift it over the post. It'll retract itself. Lap belt portion, lift up on this, disconnect, and then just stow it behind you, and you can leave your seat. So now we're going to be demonstrating a 4-point harness, which is found on most of the seats in 370 Charlie Sierra. Starts with the lap belt portion. Either side can be lengthened by pulling on the smaller strap here, or tightened by pulling on this T-post here. So we're going to lengthen it just a little bit, attach the lap belt portion, clicks in there. Now you can go ahead and tighten down either side. It should ride low and snug. That's the lap belt portion. To attach the shoulder belt portion, I'm going to have to reach over you and take these two shoulder belts. You can see someone quite a bit smaller than me was in here last, so I'm going to go ahead and lengthen these. And now I'm going to attach these two into there. and now I'm going to tighten it as necessary. So this is a 4-point harness. This 4-point harness allows me to taxi, take off, or land in the seat not only facing forward, but if I pull up on this red handle right here, or sorry, this little silver handle right here, I can actually rotate this seat and I can face any direction in flight. And because of this 4-point harness, I'm safe to taxi, take off, or land in this position. So we'll go ahead and stow this back here. If I need to release this seat belt, there's two different ways of doing it. If I want to release only the shoulder belt portion, there's a little tab right here that says lift. If I lift that tab, it's going to release only the shoulder belt portion. If I want to release the entire seat belt, simply grasp this, rotate this either direction where it says open, and that's going to disconnect 3 of the 4 points. That then allows me to take the seat belt off. So we'll go ahead and fasten that back up here, just so we can demonstrate a couple of other features. So as we are sitting in the seat, I can pull up this handle and you'll see the seat will slide outboard and it will also slide inboard. So typically we stow it outboard so there's more aisle room. Once you're actually seated in here and you need a little bit more room, you can go ahead and slide it inboard. You can move it forward and aft and with a little bit of range of motion. You can look here at the side. I don't know if you can see that, but we have a reclining mechanism here. Simply push forward on this post or this lever here, and that's going to now recline the seat. Makes it quite a bit more comfortable for longer flights. With the seat reclined, let's go ahead and turn it just a little bit. We also have armrests on here that stow in the back. So pull it out, and then it's going to fold down like that. There's a little lever or little screw in here that you can screw in or out to adjust the angle of your armrest. And again, before landing, that just needs to be brought back in and stowed, and your seat back needs to be fully upright. So we'll go ahead and disconnect the seat belt now and look at a few other details of the seat. Underneath the seat, if you look underneath this cushion right here, there's a little trap door. If you open up this door, this is where the personal flotation device for this particular seat is located. And that is it on this seat. So you can see that stowed underneath. It's like that with all 3 of these seats in here that swivel. Let's see. So here in the aft section, the aft cargo section of the aircraft, we have our cargo net. You can see it's attached on 5 points on the top and then 3 points on either side. And then it's got 5 points there on the bottom. This is a 9G cargo net. So as long as all these points are attached and it's taut, this is capable of surviving up to 9 Gs. We hang a lot of equipment from this cargo net. We have headsets here, noise canceling headsets that will typically leave back here. Behind on this section, on the port side of the aircraft, we have our power loading system. We're going to do a separate video actually detailing setting that up, using it, and taking it down and stowing it. On this section here, we have a shelf. Above the shelf, we've got all sorts of miscellaneous stuff. We have a portable suction pump. We also have some survival kit. If you look all the way in the back, is this red bag right in here. We pull it out. This is our survival kit. It's also a combination of a first aid kit as well. That's stowed in the aft cargo section on both aircraft. Underneath here, we have more additional stuff. We've got some vent mount brackets. We also have 2 portable oxygen tanks. So as we're transitioning in and out of the aircraft, if need be, we can go ahead and release one of these oxygen tanks or both of them and use that for the patient. Let's see. We also have quite a few straps. You can see all these hanging up here with carabiners. This is what we'll typically use to secure any bags you may bring. Either we'll place them behind the cargo net, which you can see is pretty full, or we'll loop this through and we'll actually attach it to the cargo net, and then that will secure things like that. So